Hello, hello,
Hello.
GM.
GM.
All right. Well, good morning to everyone from the east, and good evening to the west. I'm Sri Misra. I'm the founder of aarnâ protocol. aarnâ is an advanced DeFi asset management platform with multiple structured products catering to different strategies. And those structured products are built on our ATV tokenization platform, the aarnâ tokenization vaults platform. And security is absolutely vital at aarnâ. And we've gone through multiple audits. And I'm really thrilled to have Aneirin and Ari from Failsafe, who've done our latest security audit and are deep security experts. Thrilled to have you guys today in this chat.
Thank you.
Good to join you.
So Aneirin, you're of course like me in Singapore. Would you like to just introduce yourself a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah. So good morning to everyone on this side of the world. My name's Aneirin. I am in Singapore because I was born here. I grew up in the rest of the world, but came back to serve my military service. Joined the Navy for a while, became a combat diver. Then I went into threat intelligence as an analyst for a little while and an officer. And after that, decided that I wanted to go and build companies with the skills that I had honed. Soon after that, I met Ari, and together with a group of guys, we built a company called Failsafe, and we have ambitions beyond that, of course. But that's in a nutshell myself. I think always I like to say that the real star of the show is Ari. I'm finding out new things about him almost every other day, which is I think just testament to how incredible his career has been. So I'll pass the mic over to Ari to share a little bit about himself.
Hey guys, it's a pleasure to join you. Thank you, Sri, for inviting us. Really appreciate it. Thank you for those kind words, Flynn. So I pretty much spent my entire career in information security and computer security. I did my PhD at USC, focused on building cryptographic frameworks. Did an early version of an electronic cash system called Netcash. This is like way before all the ledger stuff got hot. This is mid 90s, basically. Spent a number of years. I spent around 8.5, 9 years at Microsoft in Windows security and a few other groups, working across a slew of their security products, including their implementation of SSL, Kerberos, others. Did confidential computing and other interesting projects at Google. I was head of identity for Grab, and that was my kind of journey into Southeast Asia. I was working remotely from Seattle, but made many trips to headquarters and spent quite a bit of time there. And that's how I met the crew. That's how I met Flynn, and we decided to go build something really interesting together.
Well, that's an awesome story to see both of you come together to build this. What I feel is an early powerhouse of a security firm. So, Ari, I was just reading up last night before hitting the bed, and I was fascinated about Netcash and NetCheck. And this was way back in '93 when you published your paper. And
sorry.
right, I understand. So, would love to read the paper at some point in time. But just in a nutshell, understood it's about an internet money based on a distributed architecture, almost like a sort of very early form before blockchain. I mean, blockchains were there at that point in time, but of course not in the form that we know. So would love to understand what was the thinking there, and yeah, maybe let's start with that.
Sure. Yeah. So in at that time, so it's now you read it, you go, oh, okay, well, yeah. I mean, who wouldn't want to have a distributed system where you can transfer funds from user to user. But this is like early '93. Most of the work at that time was really like the pioneer in the space in thinking about the space was David Chaum, like in the '80s. And he worked on a system called unconditionally anonymous cash. So this is blind signatures, and his whole premise was it was all about privacy. Now, of course, you go forward and you look at what actually happened when this vision was realized in terms of unconditional anonymity with all the and its application with the sort of the money swaps and Tornado Cash and the legality of all of that. So it turns out that privacy is not necessarily the most important thing, but he really was the pioneer, the thought leader in the space. And me and my professor Clifford Newman, we were one of the early projects to really think about what it would take to build out a system to scale the internet. Like how would you actually create the sort of trust you would need between different parties, between different participants. Prior to that, it was so there's a number of projects all coming around at the same time. A few from Carnegie Mellon, ours was one of them from USC ISI. But prior to that point, most of the thought leadership was coming from the purely cryptographers world, right? It's from you would see publication after publication in crypto Euroscript, in Eurocrypt proceedings and so on. So it was a really interesting system. We originally actually got funding for it for Netcash and NetCheck through DARPA. This is D kept being dropped on and off depending on what administration there was. At the time it was called DARPA, but this is Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. They funded the research, so it helped me quite a bit in terms of tuition for USC. But yeah, after that, I stayed in applied cryptography, in security protocols, in scaling it, building secure systems for internet scale, and yeah.
All right. Just to clarify, we all know you as Ari, but as your name says, it's Gennady or Gennady?
Yeah. So Gennady is my formal name. Ari is just a nickname. But quite a few people in Singapore, it turns out, have the same kind of a setup, which I was pleasantly surprised. There's an official name and then there's a nickname. But yeah, Ari is just a nickname.
Okay. All right. So, Ari, just staying with us a little bit more before we dive into sort of security. So, what was the sort of I don't know if I can use the word consensus mechanism or settlement mechanism in that distributed architecture at that point in time? And I said it was early. I mean, there were blockchains there and early days, but it was actually it was way too early days for the internet itself.
Yeah, I mean the big takeoff that the way I remember it, this is like Project Mosaic, Netscape coming out. The Mosaic browser was this is like '92. We had guys coming around giving talks on Mosaic. So this is all very early stage when there was ARPANET, but like if you really want to put a finger on it in time, is like really around 91, 92 timeframe when all of a sudden people started putting up HTTP : / on their storefronts, like physical storefronts. I actually saw that in LA. So this is really before the ledger, before the concept really started taking off. That it's almost like 8-9 years before that. So it was the trust. It was a number of different Netcash servers that were backed. The assets were there was a what I call practical anonymity. So it was not unconditional anonymity the way David Chaum was doing it, but it was the idea was you can have a distributed network of these Netcash servers, which each kept a balance using this net check system, and they could settle accounts. It's basically a federated scenario. If you think of federation as it's described in classic kind of Web 2 tech, that was essentially the trust system between different entities.
Okay, all right. Again, fascinating to sort of see how early this was. I mean, we're talking about Satoshi and the Bitcoin white paper coming out in 2009, and this is 93. So really, really fascinating. And Irene, so when did you sort of think of the idea of failsafe and security? And was there we've seen like one of the biggest bottlenecks in wider adoption of uh, let's say DeFi in an institutional form is really the security aspect as such. So when did you was there a certain trigger that made you think about it and to leverage your sort of background in intelligence?
So I would say actually it was a moment where I got hacked. As I think everyone who has been in Web3 has probably experienced. Either it's been a rug or
that's your learning tax.
Exactly, it's a tuition fee that you pay. But this was in DeFi summer, and I think we were all clicking around, being extremely happy about the phenomenally high APRs that some of these platforms were promoting. But anyways, one day my wallet gets drained, and at that point in time, Ari and I are already working together. I obviously thought that I was exercising some at least decent OPSEC, but I pinged Ari and I said, "Hey, what happened here, and could we have prevented it?" And over that weekend, Ari, on the back of a napkin, designs a system that would have been able to have stopped that hack even after I had submitted or proposed that transaction to the blockchain. And essentially, it was very simple. It was a system that would monitor public and private mempools, and it would essentially execute the deployment of a smart contract that had an approval to move your funds to itself, and would be bribing essentially the validators to move funds to a safe location before the attacker's transaction could be finalized. So that was the journey.
It would
exactly
front run the transaction.
Yeah, front running for a good cause.
Okay.
Exactly. So that I would say was the genesis, and Ari, together with another researcher, produced a white paper, and we shared this around with various foundations, and they got excited by it, and we basically went full steam ahead. Was there, I think, some push from my background? I would honestly say a little bit. I think the reason why a lot of cybersecurity companies are, for example, coming out of Israel is because they are born into the military. They understand attack and defense from a very young age, and it's part of their culture. And this is obviously something that's been ingrained in me with my time in the military. And so I would say cybersecurity definitely wasn't something that I pursued, but something I was probably drawn to just from this event, and also having an absolute weapon like Ari on board. It would have been a disservice not to have produced the failsafe initiative. So that was the main genesis.
All right. And I think what you refer to, that's what's called the interceptor module, right? Is that how you refer to it? Or was that the earlier name?
Sorry, I didn't catch that. Sri.
So in terms of the the framework Ari came up with and what you guys have implemented, it's part of your monitoring system currently? Is it called the interceptor module still, or is it something else that we're talking about?
Yes. Oh man, this really shows that Shri has been deep diving into our docs and probably going way back as well. But yes, interceptor module was one component of our modular or our composable defense in depth system. And yes, these building blocks put together essentially produced a multi-layered or a defense in depth approach to protecting digital assets. But yes, you're absolutely right. Interceptor was that incident response component. Sort of moving further up the funnel, we have a runtime monitoring system that is basically reading every block, analyzing transactions, and looking into the guts of a transaction. So external calls, internal transactions, and identifying if risk is taking place in real time. And of course, the benefit there is we get to alert the project owners if we see early warning signs of an attack about to take place, which gives them the critical time they need to respond, either by pausing a contract, unwinding a position, or performing some kind of other risk mitigation response. So yes, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. But in retrospect, we just thinking about our journey, right? It's we started with the hardest problem first, without even realizing it's necessarily the hardest problem, at least from a consumer's perspective. Because what does it really mean? In order to do the interception, we have to act on your behalf. So we cannot ask you for your private key, right? So there's a trust issue, and we wouldn't want to have your private key. So in lieu of that, so what else can you do? You can get an allowance to have a transparent contract that acts on your behalf. That you can have. You essentially have a cloud system that's monitoring, has fast monitoring of proposed transactions, and then if it's an unauthorized or unexpected transaction, then you do the front running. But the only way you can do a front running on an ERC 721 or an ERC 20 is if you already have allowance. So it requires quite a bit of trust to set up with even if you're completely transparent, right? I mean, you can the customer can view everything, can do the audits in the system and so on. But you are it's basically making a bet. So what we found is that the next step, if we were to do it in reverse, it's really monitoring. So yeah, sure, the transaction has already been committed, but we actually did research on this, and a lot of the attacks don't necessarily happen all in one shot. It's possible to the attacker could be super sophisticated, deploy his own contract, and just submit a batch of internal transactions. Let's speaking EVM here, do all in one shot. But in practice, what we actually do see is these things happen in a series of steps. Even starting before the attack starts, you'll see these like the Angel Drainer, any number of very famous addresses. They're like moving funds around between Tornado Cash and so on. So there's time. And so, yeah, just like Flynn mentioned, if you're monitoring, if you have rules set up, which our monitoring system makes it, there's a simple language for doing that. You can not just have real-time alerts. You can actually have it call, the alert is a webhook, right? Where, okay, this is happening. Now you can pause, or you can do whatever you want to do, whatever functionality you've built into your contract, so to stop the bleeding. And so if customer sets it up, then I mean, it certainly better to catch it before that through a thorough audit and find the whatever bugs ahead of time. But nevertheless, it's a layered defense. So defense in depth, just like Flynn mentioned, and this is just one of the tools.
Right. Okay. It's one of the few times I've heard of MEV being put to actual good use. And, otherwise, there's a lot of crypto bro thinking around MEV being a market force, but really being used for front running transactions is certainly not a sort of a market force. I mean, there are clearly issues around the unethical use of MEV. It's not that, but it's great to hear how this can be sort of is being put to use. So you guys have obviously sort of two services, right? One is the audit side, and the other is the monitoring and response side, right? Is that how your security approach works?
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
exactly. Sorry, go ahead.
Over to you.
Yeah, exactly. We also have a product called Guard. So if you look at Gnosis Safe, it's actually this is a multi-sig solution for you can deploy it for controlling, and you should, or tech like it, whether it's MPC or whether it's multi-sig. But the idea is to mitigate the risk of a single person being kidnapped or whatever, or have their private key stolen and so on. But the enhancement that we added to the system, to Gnosis Safe, is essentially the learnings from that we have over the years from Web 2. So a typical multi-sig system, just it's a quorum. 3 out of 5 people said okay, the transaction good to go. But so you don't take into account the really interesting signals, like, are you coming from the same device? Are you coming from the same IP address? Are you doing this at the right time during the day or an unexpected time? So there's all these other signals that have been used for more than 2 decades in traditional Web 2, as we call it, right? So we apply that concept there. So we're 100% integrated with Gnosis Safe. We have a cosigner. So basically, a cosigner vouches that these additional restrictions have been taken into account, and that's so cosigner does not have parity with other signers, but its job is purely to bless. Yes, these other players have. These responsible parties have met these additional set of requirements.
Okay, all right. And this you're doing by sort of binding on-chain transaction behavior along with certain off-chain parameters.
Exactly. And Gnosis Safe's setup is actually very open to that. I mean, it's open source for one, and the way it works, in contrast to say multi-sig on Solana, they have a transaction service, right? So transaction service is what it aggregates all these signatures before it's fully cooked. You can send it to the chain. So that's the best opportunity to detect these other signals, and then it's again a well architected system where you can configure this plugin contract that does the final enforcement. So it will not forward on your transaction unless these additional the cosigner has blessed it.
Okay, all right, cool. Yeah, no, that's very interesting. After we've seen multiple compromises of even multisigs, I mean, the safe's been compromised a few times now. I mean, the last time that happened with Gnosis was, I think, 6 months back or something like that, or even
Flint
the UI.
the North Korean use case. I think it was $1 billion or something like that. Something crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, the UI. Yeah. So it's definitely one of the Achilles heel, I think, in the multisig sort of framework, and this would be great to layer it on. So and that's one of the reasons at aarnâ, when we were sort of looking at our a full-fledged audit before our production platform went live, our V2 went live, and I was really keen to have something just beyond a a regular audit, and that's why I really loved what you guys have been doing. Not just on your deep focus on security from an audit perspective, but also on the monitoring and response system. And I guess, and Irene, you guys um, are monitoring and having the monitoring and response system for one of the hottest platforms today. That's Hyperliquid. Is that correct?
We do. So we do some work with that team. We have performed various scans for them. But ultimately, and I guess the thing to note here is this team is certainly very private about what they do. And so, won't divulge too much there. But ultimately, we do support the team on a couple of initiatives, and we're obviously privileged to do so. I think one of the things that we're increasingly finding is that a lot of teams want to exercise a great deal of privacy, especially because we've seen a massive influx in the frequency and the potency of attacks that are coming from not just state-sponsored hackers, but anyone that is looking to get a piece of your pie. And they understand truly that they only need to win once. They only need to exploit one attack vector. But obviously, teams need to win every single time. And so the battle is constantly skewed, unfortunately, against the defenders. And attackers ultimately continue to be incentivized. And one of the things that I think we have been constantly reminded of is obfuscation is such a powerful defense, and so we tend not to, or there are some teams that tend not to want to divulge details of obviously their security processes, which makes a lot of sense.
Right. Yes. And in the recent past, can you share what's been one of the most fascinating, attack vectors you guys have detected?
Maybe one won't be sharing too much about the details of the customer.
Yeah.
And Ari, feel free to chime in here. But one of the more alarming areas that we're seeing emerge is the attack vector that's surfacing from the inclusion of some kind of LLM application. For example, data poisoning is the new supply chain attack for LLM applications. If you truly consider what one of these things is, it is susceptible to human flaws. You can socially engineer an LLM into doing things for you and extracting funds that way. So happy for Ari to maybe chime in on that point, but I think that is a key area that we're seeing kind of explode.
Yeah, and we are actually conducting a number of these audits. So it's really a the way to think about it. It's a LLM enabled web app, right? So it's a system that has a lot of discretion. Quite a few companies are giving the LLM quite a bit of power to act on your behalf. So if you really think about the problem, if you look at kind of the systems that are being or the mind share about the space, so like AWS, so Microsoft, Google, Amazon, they all have something called guardrails. And the idea is, okay, well, whoever is doing this, whoever is deploying this, all they have to do is deploy this filter, and that filter is going to decide, what's, is something being subverted? Is there prompt injection going on? Is there some sort of prompt poisoning or whatever it is, right? Or jailbreak of the LLM. And you see, there's a number of companies that got quite a bit of money to work in this space. Prompt Foo, for example, is one of them. Good stuff, by the way. I love their SDK. But in practice, when customers actually go to implement this stuff, to give LLM discretion, it's essentially it's a new attack vector, and none of the solutions that I have seen just out of the box address the problem. And something that Flynn just alluded to, side channels. So yeah, it's a simple problem that, if you think that the interface is, it's my sentence that says, please have customer support send me my refund back. That's not actually what goes on, right? The systems tend to be more sophisticated than that, and they're gathering data from any number of sources, data feeds and whatever. So you can, if and the way these systems tend to be architected is, there's quite a bit of opportunity to feed in whatever input you like, right? It doesn't have to necessarily come from a browser, from a human being. So once if an LLM sees a certain instruction, I'm sure the folks in the audience have played, in the last year and a half, it's been the LLM's world to do development. But you'll see that the LLM has, you give it the same feed twice, it'll give you two different answers. So there is a lot of room. There's a lot of room to exploit from an attacker's perspective. It's a fascinating new attack vector, and it's really, if you think about from a pen test perspective, it's really a hybrid. It's a combination of a Web 2 kind of a pen test with a new attack surface area, and many folks in the Web 3 are also integrating it. So it's basically it's a hybrid Web 2, Web 3, and this new attack surface area. But yeah, love the from a security research perspective, it's a really cool area.
I'm sure you're very excited about it from a security research perspective, but I'm sure protocols and they're not very happy about facing another vector. But this is very interesting. Can you pan out how one such attack could pan out? For any Web3 protocol, either for their multisig or directly for their smart contracts.
Well, I mean, if you
can for example, this attack vector be used to drain funds from a contract?
So okay. So if you consider what's the most common way, so whatever happens on the blockchain, like how do we find out about it? Events, right? So if you're sitting there and listening to events, so you really need to make sure that those events don't have anything harmful in them, right? If you're going to make decisions based on events. But that's just one example. It could be any it's a think of any possible side channel. If the LLM sees raw data, there's, again, going back in time, like we've seen really fascinating side channels, like with monitoring, for example, the power fluctuations in order to figure out one's private key. So this goes back a decade, and Cypher this HSM, right? This hardware security module, which is, you're supposed to like be able to, it's supposed to protect like very, it's used to protect very, very high value assets. But researchers went and like physically got near it and then monitored the power fluctuations during computation, and were able to derive a private key from that. You can actually Google it or ask ChatGPT. You should be able to dig up a paper. But so you just need to be, it's an extreme example, but what I'm getting at is whatever you feed your LLM, you really need to make sure that that prompt is really filtered. So don't only assume that just because you use like a third-party SDK, like from PromptFu or something, that you're in good shape.
Yeah. Okay. So you mean if you're actually exposing confidential data to the LLM, then obviously it's a clear case. But is there is there something beyond that as well? Can
Well,
an LLM be actually engineered to get
well,
into your?
but the thing is that what we're seeing now is LLMs are being used to act as customer support.
Yeah,
LLM is doing trading on your behalf, right? It is trading on your behalf, and it's making decisions based on, well, what's the what's the current price of this and that? What happened with your contract?
yeah,
So it's getting a lot of inputs, and all those inputs, you really need to be careful around the uh, making sure that you sanitize everything that goes into the prompt. Make no assumptions about because it's all layered, right? By the time you get to the LLM, you assume that your prompt's good, your feed's good.
yeah. No, no, absolutely. I mean, I wrote a piece on what I termed emergent persuasion. And if you look at how LLMs are designed and the kind of interactions, if you started out right from day one and over the last 2 years, if you see how they are interacting, is there very nice subtle nudges here there, very agreeable, and they kind of are shaping our perception and thoughts at a deep level. And I ran an interesting experiment. I asked sort of chat gpt, like, are you designed to manipulate? And the responses that I got was from that was pretty interesting. So it's sort of not by design, but I'm incentivized to engage and sort of be agreeable and certain things, which actually sort of made me arrive at this thing that it's very persuasive in a very subtle way now. And at the same time, if it has access to private keys, controllers, and wallets, and what have you, and with this sort of persuasive behavior, a lot can happen. Yeah. Okay. All right. Get it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's again, it's a layer, it's a defense in depth layer
Mm.
defense approach when building a system like this. So you still need to have like a a sandbox essentially that this thing is if you're building a system that can act on your behalf to move funds or whatever, you
Mm.
still the ultimate ability, like you should not have, for example, access to anything that you don't expect to have happen, right? So this thing should not have, for example, this is maybe kind of a strawman example, but if it has a key
Mm.
that has your funds that don't necessarily belong to the end users,
Mm.
you certainly don't want that, right? So it's the environment, it's a sandbox environment that you need to
Yeah.
set up in addition to many other um, aspects that we were just talking about. But yeah, it's pretty amazing how things have been evolving,
Mm.
how quickly things have been evolving in the last year and a half, and its capabilities.
Yeah. True. Um, and Irene, what's sort of your sort of market perspective on how security standards have evolved in the last, let's say, 18 months, vis-a-vis how security vectors have also advanced. So who's ahead right now? Are DeFi protocols a lot more safer than they were a year and a half back?
Absolutely. I think across the board, so things like vulnerabilities in the code, due to, let's say, business logic or something that an engineer just may have forgotten to tackle. These things are happening less and less because libraries are becoming more advanced and protocol developers are learning from each other. And so I think on the code level, what we're seeing is attack vectors or vulnerabilities are showing up less and less. So overall, trending in the right direction.
Mhm.
However, I think the alarming area to watch out for is everything outside of purely the smart contract code. So, what dependencies do you have? Who has control of what? Are you exercising least privilege? Have you set up your perimeters correctly? Have you performed rigorous KYC on your developers? Have they created backdoors for themselves? And I think what we're seeing is across the surface area, attackers are starting to explore the periphery and not target specifically the smart contracts. So I would say, on the one hand, definitely seeing that things are obviously becoming more secure. There's greater maturity in terms of security awareness. Founders, I mean, security culture really starts with founders, and we're seeing that founders are truly picking this up and running with ensuring that security is part of the culture from day one, and not just a department or an audit that they pay for. And I think where the market is moving is really towards more end-to-end security engagement. So what we're finding now is that projects are coming to us sometimes earlier to better understand how they should be thinking about OPSEC. Not just looking at vulnerabilities in the code, but understanding how to securely deploy, who should be managing keys, how funds should be segregated, et cetera, et cetera. And this even goes to things like phishing campaigns, doing security awareness training, running tabletop exercises, and essentially performing and preparing the team to think that an attack will happen and not that it's probably not going to happen and it's something that they don't really need to think about too much. So in general, what we're seeing is what projects that get to work with teams that truly understand and care about security from the get-go are doing a lot better, which is, I think, to be honest, Sri, I think I have to say something here about aarnâ. You have chosen to set up shop in Singapore. It is not an easy place to set up shop, and I think you've chosen to do the right but necessary thing, even though it's hard. And for example, engaging a company like Failsafe, who is going to take a very adversarial approach, is often something that founders don't always enjoy. They don't like that. Oh my goodness, a vulnerability could be found where maybe my launch times might be delayed by a couple of days. But we respect that, and we think that it's essentially the right thing to do, and essentially doing the painful thing up front is going to save you from the much more painful thing down the line. So kudos to you, Sri, and yeah, really excited about this partnership.
Thank you. Yeah, likewise, sort of, yeah, security is absolutely vital at aarnâ, and we're building something for the long term. So and I'm sure we'll have to be on our toes, and it's something that I and my team kind of are constantly looking at, and would love to sort of keep ourselves apace as well with every development in the security space for DeFi protocols like ours. No, a great conversation. I'd like to sort of maybe ask Ari to close with your thoughts on quantum, and especially around post-quantum cryptography. Is that something we need to arrive at sooner than later?
Yeah, so it's actually very interesting. This is a topic that I got really interested in. It's almost been a couple of years. One of our advisors, Ben Lifshitz, my former colleague from Microsoft, he was an MSR, Microsoft Research. So we ended up putting a paper together on, assuming that, and we have it on I think it's on AVX, assuming that there's going to be an inflection point where ECDSA gets broken. So if you know that ahead of time, what could you do? What can you do about it now? And there's a number of efforts going on right now that are building quantum resilient cryptography into their blockchains. But as we know, to date in practice, ECDSA it's what's used for Bitcoin. It's what's used for Ethereum. So it's kind of a race, right? So who arrives there first? It's the real danger is we can be kind of coasting like this for 2, 3, 4 years, who knows, and then all of a sudden it's a break the same way. Who would have thought 2 years ago? Would you imagine that? How looking at LLMs, like I swear, like 2 years ago, I would have never dreamt that LLMs would be doing what they are doing today. So it could be one of those moments. So hopefully between now and then, there are crypto, there are algorithms out there that are resilient to quantum computing, and let's all hope that everyone is taking it quite seriously and building out their stacks to accommodate.
All right. Okay, fab. Enjoyed the morning conversation. Thank you, Ari. Thank you, Aneirin. And I'm told by my team, I just saw a message that we've got close to 1,500 people in the audience listening in on X. So if you got any questions, guys in the audience, please feel free to shoot it to us, and we'll get back. Security is vital for everyone, whether you're doing few $100 or you're doing hundreds of millions of dollars. It's vital in every form. And follow us on Twitter on aarnâ says, and the failsafe handle as well. And thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sri. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate it.